So there are also some cultural issues that come to mind when we're thinking about mental health and deaf patients and hearing interpreters. And a lot of times during treatment, it's a process of, like digging deep within yourself and trying to uncover all of these problems. But what are the root causes of these problems? We want to get beyond like a superficial level, and that would be different for each patient, from one patient to the next, because we've all had our own upbringing, we've all had our own background, different from the next, and so. A lot of times, a lot of the things that are coming out, a lot of the issues that are coming up, a lot of the ideas that are coming out are really rich, culturally rich things that are going on that someone from another culture would have a hard time understanding. I mean, hearing interpreters will never know what it's like to be deaf. So who better to understand culturally rich things that are unique to a deaf person than another deaf person? So those are other reasons why we would want to have a deaf interpreter in the mental health setting. Another idea, okay, I want everyone just to think about this. Imagine you're in Italy, all right, and you're experiencing some mental health crisis, and you need to go get some treatment. And you're in Italy, and you're American, and the only person that you can go see is an Italian psychiatrist or psychologist and an Italian interpreter who speaks English, but there's no American there in the room with you. You're feeling really alone. There's no one there to identify with you. Like what is, there's going to be some kind of trust issue there probably. I mean, I know if I were in a foreign country and I had to go get either mental health treatment or medical treatment, and there was no American there, it would make me really, really nervous because I feel like there's no one there really on my side. You know what I mean? So if you can imagine that, for a deaf person, I mean, that's what they're going through every time they go to an appointment, or any situation. There's a lot of times no one there to really identify with who they are culturally. So possibly by bringing in deaf interpreters, we're adding a level of trust there for the deaf patient. And I can just imagine, what it's like, and so if the deaf patient is able to trust the therapist more, then they're probably going to have a more successful treatment process. So also something that was very interesting that came up in one of my discussions in class was we're discussing using deaf interpreters in lots of settings. And right now, it's not that it's a new thing. It's not like that, all of a sudden our profession decided to start using deaf interpreters, but it's being talked about a lot. And there's even some talk, there's some street leverage articles that you can read about using deaf, possibly like requiring that deaf interpreters be used in certain settings, and possibly like, is it a violation of our code of conduct to not use deaf interpreters in some situations like mental health? But it's hard, it's really hard to get people's mindsets changing. It's very hard to convince a person who's paying the bill to hire 2 interpreters instead of 1, but these are things that we have to talk about. We're training deaf interpreters, and then there's not a lot of work out there, and deaf interpreters are coming and getting their training and getting their education they need to do the job, and then there's not a lot of work out there. So there's a lot of different things that need to go on. We need more training, but we also need more acceptance of deaf interpreters in a lot of settings. So one really interesting idea was an article that was written in 2005, and it talks about using deaf interpreters, but a really interesting idea that came out of it was using deaf interpreters for hearing interpreters right after they graduate their IEP, and they're not really ready to get certified yet. They're in that gap, they're in the gap, like they're not really ready to get certified yet. So a really good way to bridge that gap is to hire deaf interpreters to go with these new baby interpreters to assignments, and that they have like a great language model, a native language model, and also a deaf interpreter is getting work in that way, and, you know, possibly making that gap shorter for that new baby interpreter. So that's another idea about that we could think about using deaf interpreters. I think I could keep going on. Okay, so.